used in another very crucial mission. I'm referring to Axiom's mission, which will carry Indian astronaut Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla to space, who's of course a part of our Gaganyaan program. So what can we expect over there? It's touted to be a 14-day mission.
So I think that is something that would be really interesting. I think this would be our, one of the first steps towards, making a permanent presence in space. I think ISRO is building our own station, that is Indian a space station that would again be at 400 kilometer-ish orbits. And as a part of, the gradual process of technology development, it's the first steps is towards where we launch these spacecrafts uncrewed and prove their reliability in space by multiple missions, and then we qualify them for safe for human flight. While we do this, I think this maneuver that we are doing with Axiom and SpaceX Dragon by sending our astronauts there, I think that would be a good sort of a training ground for them to experience orbits, earthen orbits, and travel at those extremely high altitudes and speeds, and be prepared for what's coming. In the platform that is grown right back at home in India. So I still recall my experience visiting one of the International Space Center's Mission Control Center in Germany. These are essentially ground units that interact with the astronauts in space. So every astronaut is sort of studied in detail, and the mission controller knows more or less each astronaut's life to much intricate details. And it's although there will be an army of people who's supporting each and every activity in International Space Station, it's only the mission controller who is allowed to talk to the astronauts, because he understands them very well. He has studied each and every astronauts very well. He knows what to tell, he knows what not to tell to these astronauts. So I think that is how in detail space missions are carried, wherein an activity as simple as talking to an astronaut is treated as a specialized domain expertise, and only people who are qualified to talk to astronauts, only they are supposed to talk, others cannot talk. So I think mission that we are our astronauts, Indian astronauts, are going to undertake with SpaceX, I think that would be a good hands-on experience, especially for the astronauts. To sort of test their training in action, I would say. I built satellites for a living. We do a lot of testing on ground, but when our systems, our engineering artifacts are tested in orbit, that's a different a reality check that we get altogether, and something the words can't describe when something works actually in space. So I think that is what we are moving towards with the mission with Axiom, and I think it would be very interesting to see a follow-on completely Indian mission, wherein our astronauts take off from our own soil and stay in space.
To the Gaganyaan program, of course, this mission is planned for 2026, and our eyes will be peeled for that as well. But I wanted to take a quick follow-up from you. The Axiom mission is a private space flight mission. India, of course, we are seeing, a lot of private companies such as yours, burgeoning out and coming in, and of course, making several inroads. So how long do you think, how many more years do you think in the near future will we see a private company from India, of course, involved in perhaps human space flight in the future?
So I think this is a very interesting question. I think as Indian sort of space ecosystem, both on the government side and the private company side, I think we have demonstrated to the world that we can build space missions. We can build space missions that can go very far, be it to moons or other planets, and we can do it successfully. We can do it in a way where we can achieve successes in the first time and do it at a very cost efficient way. I think these are the things that are already demonstrated, and the question is no longer that can we build it. I think we can build it. I think the next step for the entire Indian ecosystem building space technologies in the country is that how can we do this at scale? We have launched one mission to moon. How can we do 10 missions to moon? We are doing 10 rockets in a year. How can we do 1,000 rockets a year? I think it's the question next is how can we move towards achieving scale and see the benefits of economies of scale coming out of India. I think this is where exactly the private ecosystem comes into picture, where scale is something the private industry usually specializes in and can achieve it much faster than a traditional way. Taking example of SpaceX Dragon, I think it has conducted way more number of flights than many other spacecrafts traditionally built, and they have done it extremely beautifully. Right now, I think all the Indian space companies are at a place where they have demonstrated their successful first missions and they are working beautifully. And I think the next step is towards working towards that scale. And while we scale our efforts, I think it's also important that we start utilizing space as a very judicial resource. International Space Station itself, we call it maneuvers, orbital movements that it undertakes so that it doesn't crash into any space junk and things like that. I think while we embark on this journey where we scale our efforts in terms of utilizing space, I think utilization of space as a resource and also utilizing the space resource in a very sustainable way, I think both would go hand in hand in the coming decade that we are going to see in the space exploration.
Indeed, sir. Stay on with us. I know I digressed a little bit. I'd like to go back to Dr. Kishan, who's still with us. Sir, I want to understand